Hi and welcome to today's episode, which is going to be all about triggers and how to stop yourself being triggered into that spiral of overwhelm or spiral of self-doubt or spiral of negativity, whatever it is. So we all have triggers, certain subjects that make us react physically. So we, in that moment, something comes up and we like have kind of, there could be a feeling of self-doubt, jealousy, fear, whatever it is. So we have a trigger in that moment. And what tends to happen in that moment of that trigger is then it will allow us to go really quickly into a spiral where those things get bigger and bigger. And, you know, we get more and more into that either self-doubt or fear or whatever it is. It will kind of create its own momentum. And what I want to do is show you today a really quick way to be able to start to change that and shift that. In first time, which you would have heard a lot if you've watched my episode, is awareness is the first point of change. So I want you to just start to become of what those triggers are. Okay, what are your big triggers? What are the things that really trigger you? What are the subjects or, things people talk about or you see or you witness? What are your triggers? So get really clear on what they are and what the feeling feels like when you have in that moment. Because in that moment, there's an awareness, there's always a doorway. Once we're aware of something, once we've brought the unconscious into the conscious, so you've brought an unconscious behavior that's just happening kind of out of your control, then once you bring that into your conscious awareness, you then have an opportunity to make a choice. And we often don't, it doesn't feel like a choice, but we always have a choice in that moment to react differently or react the same. We have a choice. So I'm going to start this conversation with you to understand that there will be a moment when you have that trigger. Once you become aware of what those triggers are, so I want you to go around noticing what they are and how you react to them. In that moment, you can do something different. One of the first things, because it's a physical reaction within you, I'm going to invite a physical change within you. And that can be something as simple as breathing deeply. Breathe, let's say 10 really deep breaths. Okay. And I want you to imagine you're going to, because with your hands, you can shake energy out. Okay. You can shake frequency energy out of your body. So you can breathe and just shake off. Give yourself like 10 shakes in that moment. Because our psyche and our soma, like our brain and our body, are so closely linked. When you change your physiology, it gives you a doorway to change your mental, what's happening in your mind. So I want you to understand that in that moment, you have a choice to react differently. How would you like to react? Okay. If you could set an intention for that reaction in that situation, what would it be? And when you're doing this, you're creating a new neural pathway for you, that there is an alternative, because the old way is just the old way that you already know. You're triggered and you react in that way, and you've done that many times. But by having this doorway, this stop, like a full stop, and an ability to understand that there's a different way. So I want you to think, okay, if I was going to show up in my highest self, in the strongest version of me, how would I like to react? And just imagine it. Okay, just imagine that different way of reacting. Okay, once we've done that, because your brain doesn't know if something's happening or not, your brain is not aware of whether it's real or not. They've done a lot of tests where they put electrodes on athletes and they ran like an Olympic race. And in that moment of the Olympic race, as they thought of it, their muscles fired off as if they were running the race. So in that moment, just giving yourself an alternative gives yourself a different way to react in that moment when you're triggered. Also, so there's two things. So first of all, the physical breathing, if you can, actually do a physical like movement, a physical, like maybe you can jump, do 10-star jumps. Maybe you can go outside and take a deep breath. Maybe you can go into nature, whatever you can do in that moment. Great. If you're just sitting somewhere and you can't move in that moment, sorry, I'm going to keep going. And if you can't move, then what you can do is deep breath and shake out a few times in your hands, and then think of that alternative and just try this. Notice what happens when you understand that you can actually make a change. You can make a difference. What I keep inviting you to over and over again on this channel is the understanding that you have a choice, that we have a choice, that all this unconscious behavior that we've done for like months, years, that we have a moment we can change it. And one of the things Joe Dispenza says, which I love so much, is so powerful. Anything from Joe Dispenza Watch his channels, watch what he's doing. He does an amazing work. He's also studied the effect that his work and this work does on your brain, has on your brain, to be able to change not only you physically, but mentally and emotionally. One of the things he talks about is if you want to change your reality, you need to change your personality. So how you're showing up, the way that you're reacting and behaving. You have to become conscious. You have to bring the unconscious into the conscious. You have to bring those behaviors that you're unconsciously doing into the conscious mind and make a different decision at that moment to do something different. And we have that ability to do it. We have the ability to change. No one can come into your mind and think for you. No one can come into your body and feel for you. You are the one in control of that. So the invitation here is to become control of that, become in control of that, make those decisions in that moment, to first of all be aware of what's happening and next shift that. And the most brilliant thing is, as soon as you're aware of your triggers, in the first moment that you're aware, there isn't much power that's been built up in that moment. What happens is the more you think about, the more you go into that overthinking spiral, the larger and larger it becomes. You pick one little topic and then it'll become grow. And then you know where that ends you up. So the invitation here is to, before it starts that cycle, use your body to change your state. So either breathing, going outside, moving, dancing, doing anything to move your body in that moment. And then with that doorway, then think of, okay, how else would I like to show up? What else can I be telling myself at the moment? What else, how can I change the spiral that I'm thinking into something that's going to allow me to have more freedom, more hope, more potential, more possibility? How can I empower myself in this moment? How do I take my power back from that unconscious behavior that's just a past experience that you felt time and time again? How do I bring myself now into the present and move forward by moving, by speaking differently, by thinking differently, by changing my reaction to that? So this is going to be a really exciting, I almost want to say an experiment with yourself just for the next week. Start to experiment with yourself and see what happens. See what you notice when you take control of what your decisions are in that moment. And it is a work in progress. You don't change like overnight from thinking something you thought for 20 years to changing completely. But what happens is, every time you do this, every time you change, your brain learns a new neural pathway and your brain's like, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing this. We're not doing that anymore. We're doing this. We're not doing that anymore. We're doing this. And what happens is that becomes the new pattern very quickly, a lot quicker than having to take 20 years to do it. It happens every time you're doing it, so that within a few months you can be in a completely different mental and emotional landscape, believing and feeling and experiencing a different version of yourself. You just need to, at the moment, do one step at a time. First one is awareness, then have that ability at that moment to make a change, a choice, and then making that choice to do something different in that moment. And if you don't, and you make the other choice, the old choice, just witness that and be like, oh, okay, then I end up there again. Okay? Because sometimes we need to know what we don't want to need to know what we want. And every time, if it happens and then you witness yourself, that in itself is a win, because you're already becoming conscious about the old behavior. So it is already a win. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from you in the comments, and see you on the next episode.